Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 5. We gonna explain about alternatives in assessment. My name is Intan Oktaviani and my friend Maya Khoirotun and Achmad Taufik M. For the first is the history of alternative assessment. Early in the decade of the 1990, in a culture of rebellion against the nation that all people and all skills could be measured by traditional tests, a novel concept emerged that began to be labeled alternative assessment. The characteristic of alternative assessment. 1. Alternative assessment is situated in the classroom with teacher making choices in the measure used. 2. Alternative assessment is based on a constructivist view of learning whereby the student, the text, and the context impact learning outcomes. 3. Alternative assessment is predicated on the view that learning processes are equal to, if not greater than, the resulting product. The meaning of alternative assessment. Alternative assessment, which also is referred to as classroom-based, qualitative, informal, or performance assessment, is a way to gauge student learning other than formal testing. The biggest benefit of using alternative assessment. The biggest benefit that alternative assessment provides in the sense students have of themselves and the learning that they acquire. Without this type of assessment that is overlooked, I also see a hug benefit of us being able to understand exactly what they know and don't know. Other assessment can blur this image and give false readings about students' knowledge. Alternative assessment makes this more visible and therefore making teaching more tailored for minority students. Next is about the kind of alternative assessment. There are 8 kinds of alternative assessment. 1. Performance-based assessment, portfolios, journal, conference and interviews, observations, self and peer assessment.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Maya Khoirotun J. In this occasion, I will continue from Intan presentation. I will convey about the characteristics of PBA. According to O'Malley and Valdez-Pierce, the following are characteristics of performance assessment. First one, students make a constructed response, and then they engage in bigger other thinking with open-end tasks. And then, tasks are meaningful, engaging, and authentic. Number 4, tasks call for the integration of language skill, and then both process and product are assessed. And last, depth of a student's mastery is emphasized over breadth. The point 2 is portfolios. According to Jeunesse and Observe, a portfolio is a purposeful collection of students' work that demonstrates their efforts, progress, and achievement in given areas. The materials of portfolios. Portfolios include materials such as essay and composition in draft and final forms, reports, project outlines, poetry and creative prose, artwork, photos, newspaper or magazine clipping, audio or video recordings of presentation, demonstration, and the others, journal, diaries, and other personal reflection, tests, test score, and written homework exercise, notes on lectures, and self and peer assessment, comments, evaluation, and checklists. The attributes of a portfolio. Gottlieb suggests a developmental scheme for considering the nature and purpose of portfolios using the acronym CRADLE to designate 6 possible attributes of portfolio. C for collecting, R for reflecting, A for assessing, D for documenting, L for linking, and A for evaluating as collections. The steps and guidelines of a portfolio. Successful portfolio development will depend on following a number of steps and guidelines. Number 1, state objective clearly. And number 2, give guidelines on what material to include. Number 3, communicate assessment criteria to students. Number 4, designate time within the curriculum for portfolio development. Number 5, establish periodic schedule for review and conferencing. Number 6, designate an accessible place to keep portfolios. And 7, provide positive feedback and giving final assessment. Number 3, journals. A journal is a log or account of one's thoughts, feelings, reaction, assessment, ideas, or progress toward goals, usually written with little attention to structure, form, or correctness. The steps and guidelines of using journals as assessment instrument. There are several positive general steps and guidelines for using journals as assessment instrument. The first one, sensitively introduce students to the concept of journal writing. Number 2, state the objective of the journal. Number 3, give guidelines on what kind of topic to include. Number 4, carefully specify the criteria for assessing of grading journals. Number 5, provide optimal feedback in your responses. Number 6, designate appropriate time frames and schedule for reviews. And number 7, provide formative feedback, giving final comment. Number 4, conferences and interviews. A conference is an event with some time lasting a few days at which there is a group of talk on a particular subject or a meeting in which especially business matters are discussed formally. An interview is assessment which intended to denote a context in which a teacher interviews and a student for a designated assessment purpose. Okay, and the next presentation will convey by my friend Achmad Taufik Mubarak. Thank you.
The next material is a number of generic kinds of question in a conference. Materi selanjutnya yaitu sejumlah jenis pertanyaan umum di dalam konferensi. Di sini Genesi and observe outread a number of generic kinds of questions that might be useful to pose in a conference. Di sini Genesi and observe menawarkan sejumlah jenis pertanyaan umum yang mungkin berguna untuk diajukan di dalam konferensi. For the first one is, what did you like about this work? Apa sih yang kamu suka dari pekerjaan ini? Kemudian for the second one is, what do you think you did well? Apakah kamu berpikir yang kamu lakukan itu baik? How does it show improvement from previous work. Bagaimana itu menunjukkan peningkatan daripada pekerjaannya sebelumnya. Jadi, apakah yang dilakukan murid pada minggu ini lebih baik daripada minggu yang sebelumnya? Can you show me the improvement? Kemudian, dapatkah kamu menunjukkan peningkatan yang terjadi? And for the question number 4, are there things about this work you do not like? Adakah sesuatu tentang pekerjaan ini yang gak kamu suka? Kemudian, are there things you would like to improve? Apakah ada sesuatu yang ingin kamu improve, yang ingin kamu tingkatkan? Kemudian, question number 5, did you have any difficulties with this piece of work? Adakah kamu merasa sulit dalam pekerjaan ini? Jika iya, if so, where and what will you do to overcome them? Di mana dan apa yang akan kamu lakukan to overcome them, untuk mengatasinya? And number 6, what strategies did you use to figure out the meaning of words you couldn't understand? Jadi apa sih strategi yang akan kamu gunakan untuk menemukan arti kata yang kamu tidak ketahui? And the last one is, what did you do when you didn't know a word that you wanted to write? Jadi apa sih yang akan kamu lakukan ketika kamu itu tidak mengetahui sebuah kata yang ingin kamu tulis? You can say that you can answer like, I can open dictionary or remember carefully, something like that. And the next one is several possible goals of using an interview assessment. Beberapa tujuan yang mungkin menggunakan penilaian wawancara. Interviews might have one or more of several possible goals in which the teachers, number 1, assesses the student's oral production, menilai produksi lisan siswa. Number 2, ascertains a student's need before designing course or curriculum, memastikan kebutuhan siswa sebelum mendesain sebuah mata pelajaran atau kurikulum. And number 3, seeks to discover students' learning styles and preferences, berusaha untuk menemukan gaya dan preferensi belajar siswa. And number 4, asks a student to assess his or her own performance. And the last one, requests an evaluation of a course, meminta evaluasi suatu mata pelajaran. The next, guidelines of an interview, petunjuk dalam wawancara. Because interviews have multiple objectives, it is difficult to generalize principles for conducting them, but the following guidelines might help to frame the question efficiently. For the number 1, offer an initial atmosphere of warmth and anxiety-lowering or warm-up. And number 2, begin with a relatively simple question. So, do not begin with a hard question, it will be low for students. And number 3, continue with level check and probe questions, but adapt to the interview as needed. And number 4, frame questions simply and directly. Bungkus pertanyaan itu secara simple dan langsung, jangan bertele-tele. Number 5, focus on only one factor for each question. Fokus hanya pada satu faktor dalam setiap pertanyaan. Jangan terlalu banyak faktor sehingga tidak efisien. Do not combine several objectives in the same question. Number 6, be prepared to repeat or reframe questions that are not understood. And the last one, number 7, bend down with friendly and reassuring closing comments. We move into new materials. Number 5 is observations. An observation is the action or process of observing something or someone carefully or in order to gain information. This definition I get from Oxford Dictionary. Jadi sebuah informasi itu adalah sebuah proses meneliti sesuatu atau seseorang secara detail, secara berhati-hati, atau untuk dalam hal untuk to gain information, untuk mencapai, untuk mencari sesuatu. Steps of using a classroom observation as alternative assessments. Langkah dalam menggunakan observasi kelas sebagai penilaian alternatif. In order to carry out classroom observation, it is of course important to take the following steps. Number 1, determine the specific objectives of the observation. Temukan objek spesifik di dalam observasi tersebut. Decide how many students will be observed at one time. Tentukan jumlah siswa yang akan kita observasi itu dalam satu waktu. Number 3, set up the logistics for making annotated observations. Number 4, design a system for recording observed performances. Number 5, do not overestimate the number of different elements you can observe at one time. Keep them very limited. Jangan melebih-lebihkan jumlah elemen yang berbeda yang dapat kamu observasi dalam satu waktu. Itu tidak efisien. And number 6, plan how many observations you will make. And the last, determine specifically how you will use the result. Number 6, self and peer assessment. Self and peer assessment is about revision and improvement which enables students to independently assess their own and other students' progress with confidence rather than always relying on teacher judgment. Daripada selalu menunggu daripada penilaian guru. Types of self and peer assessment. Jenis SPA. There are 5 types of self and peer assessment, which number 1 is assessment of a specific performance. Number 2, indirect assessment of general competence. Number 3, metacognitive assessment for setting goals. And number 4, socio-affective assessment. Number 5, the last one, is students generated tests. The next one is guidelines for self and peer assessment. There are 5 guidelines will help teachers bring these intrinsically motivating tasks into the classroom successfully. For number 1 is tell students the purpose of the assessment. Katakan pada siswa tujuan daripada penilaian. Number 2 is define the task clearly. Number 3, encourage practical evaluation of performance or ability. The last one, number 5, ensure beneficial was back through follow-up tasks. And this is the last slide of our presentation. Hopefully you can fully understand well and easily. If our group make mistakes, we are really apologize for that. The last but not least, I just want to say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for listening our presentations today. Thank you and thank you for watching, guys. Bye.